The Game Awards 2022 announcements unveiled many of the most anticipated indie titles of 2023 and beyond, including Supergiant Games' upcoming sequel, Hades 2. The studio's unique approach to the roguelike genre, particularly its incorporation of a complex system of dialogue and encounter mechanics, brought players a story-rich, Greek mythology-inspired vision that has rightly earned immense commercial success for Supergiant. With Hades 2, Supergiant continues the underworld story where gamers left off, but from a different angle. Players make their way through the underworld as another child of Hades, Melano. His story revolves around something very different from that of Zagreus, the salvation of Hades. To do this, she must defeat the Titan of Time himself, Chronos, who has broken away from Tartarus and threatens to destroy the world. Supergiant didn't provide much more than a teaser on what to expect from its portrayal of the legendary Titan. But the mythology surrounding its rise and fall provides plenty of clues as to how Supergiant is likely to interpret the Titan character. The mythology of Chronos. In Greek mythology, there are actually two mythological figures that have historically been associated as the father of time, Chronos and Chronos. Depending on the time of the story, these characters are either the same person or separate entities. In ancient times, Chronos and Chronos seem to have been considered one and the same, the origin of their names being the Greek word for time, Chronos. In the original story of the Greek Olympians, Chronos is the son of the Titans Uranus and Gaia and the youngest of the 12 Titans. He later overthrew his father to become king of the Titans, where he made his own sister Re his bride. As king, he had 6 children with Re, Zeus, Poseidon, Hades, Demeter, Hestia, and Hera, all of whom would later rise to power as Olympian gods. Chronos himself was not an ideal father. Titans often excel in their brutality, and Chronos was no different. As part of a plan to keep his sons from overthrowing him, Chronos ate his sons to ensure that treachery was impossible. However, Re hid Zeus on the island of Crete after her birth to keep him from Chronos' clutches. Zeus would grow up safe before going to war against his father to free his brothers from Chronos' stomach. Chronos was defeated by Zeus and all of his sons were freed during the 10-year war known as the Titanomachy. However, what happened to Chronos after his defeat is less clear. According to the tale, Chronos was either thrown into the pits of Tartarus, the deepest prison of the underworld, or ascended to the rank of king at the Elysium. The story of Chronos. Despite his prominent role in the creation myth of the Olympian pantheon, Chronos is not revered by the Greeks. Its presence dates back to pre-Hellenic times, but since the Olympians would have already conquered it, its role as a cult figure only seems to have crystallized in Roman times. It was then that his broader influence on Western religions today began to take shape. After antiquity, the Romans took the Greek Chronos and merged it with their native god Saturn, who was a deity ruling primarily over calendars, seasons, and harvests. Saturn's merger with Chronos in religious practice was one of many instances in history where the rift between Chronos and Chronos widened to the point that they became separate entities. Chronos was no longer identified as the father of time, who was now Chronos, but as a Titan god of the harvest, ruling over the passage of time. Here, Chronos and Chronos masked themselves in other Western cultural figures such as Father Time, which blurred the cultural image of the Titan. Saturnalian Chronos is also the time in history when the image of the harvesting scythe became associated with the Titan. Especially during the Renaissance, this representation of the god of the harvest on Father's Day conquered art. This popularity as a subject for artistic expression would continue for centuries with notable works of art created by such figures as Hieronymus Bosch, Peter Paul Rubens, Francisco Goya, L. Frank Baum, Edgar Allan Poe and C.S. Lewis and many others. The popularity of the God of War and Hades franchise is a continuation of this ongoing interest in interpreting the figure of Chronos and the complex religious and cultural history he represents. How Hades 2 could interpret Chronos. Hades 2 seems to interpret the mythology with Chronos as a Titan master of time and a prisoner in Tartarus. This makes sense given the game's underworld setting and the game's version of mythology's Greek origins. However, Greek mythology is one of the few major Western religions that did not prophesy a future rapture or apocalypse. This means that there is little historical information about what could lead to the fall of the gods or if the Titans would ever rise again. This is where Hades 2 and other successful adaptations of Greek mythology mostly deliver their own creative spin. It will be especially interesting to see how Supergiant approaches time-based attacks, time travel, and other methods of time control in the upcoming game. The trailer itself hints that killing a weather-controlling being seems nigh on impossible without having a plan to counter such an overwhelming ability. As a result, Chronos' manipulation of time and his fight against Melano will likely draw on Supergiant's interest in capturing the history of sorcery in Greek mythology. In the Hades 2 FAQ, the company specifically discusses the game's connection to witchcraft, saying, "Central to this ancient and oft-feared and misunderstood practice is Hecate, the secretive goddess of witchcraft and the crossroads. She plays a significant role in classical mythology surrounding Hades and the underworld, and has been an influential and deeply compelling figure in witchcraft, myth, and folklore in a variety of cultures for thousands of years, so much so that we felt we needed a whole new game to try and do her justice. Chronos may be able to control time in Hades too, but Hecate and Melano have other, older means by which they can bend the fabric of time to their advantage. While both Melano and Zagreus are rooted in true mythological figures, the incredible work of the Supergiant Games editorial team truly brings them to life. Zagreus has already entered the hallowed halls of video game idols, and Melano and her story seem well placed to repeat history and give gamers another chance to explore the beauties of the underworld and its sometimes less than friendly denizens. It remains to be seen how far Melano will have to go to defeat Chronos, and what consequences this may have on the fall of time itself. Hades 2 is in development, with early access scheduled for 2023. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe and support my channel.